Donald Trump goes on another rant about the dangers of Tylenol. Cough drops? You're next. This is just another day. Thanks to our president, we are contending with a daily dose of chaos that makes your head feel like it's been put through a meat grinder. But if you're looking for something to help with the pain, the big man, once again, has some suggestions.
Moments ago, President Trump posted a litany of medical misinformation. Pregnant women don't use Tylenol unless absolutely necessary. Don't give Tylenol to your young children for virtually any reason. Break up the MMR shot into 3 totally separate shots, not mixed. Take chicken pea shots separately. Take hepatitis B shot at 12 years old or older. And importantly, take vaccine in 5 separate medical visits.
My God, I haven't seen Donald Trump do this much damage to children since he looked the other way on his friend's underage sex trafficking ring. Now, countless doctor groups and scientists have blasted the president and RFK Jr. for their inability to back up this medical advice with any meaningful science or study. And the makers of Tylenol have also issued their own statement, which, to paraphrase, is, what the fuck, dude?
The maker of Tylenol said, "We believe independent, sound science clearly shows that taking acetaminophen does not cause autism. It's the safest pain reliever option for pregnant women." That's because medications such as ibuprofen and aspirin are already discouraged for pregnant women due to risks of miscarriage and birth defects.
Today, we found that there's no new studies. I think we were hoping that maybe there was some new information that they had that they were revealing to the public, but really they just reinterpreted old data and decided to make this change.
Wait, you're telling me that the guy who pitched a totally new phone company that's the world's most conservative and patriotic form of communication, but it's actually just an old phone with some cheap gold paint on it, is taking something old and pitching it as new? I highly doubt it. Look, as much as I hate to pile on and say the president seemed rushed in his clinical tweet guidance this morning, I think referring to hepatitis B as hepatitis B is cause for concern. Of course, hepatitis B is the affliction Jason Momoa suffers from. So sad, yet so hot. But just because Trump has attended medical school for a total of, I'd say, 15 minutes, he's still the president, which means his ludicrous plans are actually taking shape already.
According to the administration, using acetaminophen during pregnancy is associated with an increased risk of autism. The Food and Drug Administration plans to initiate a safety label change to reflect the new advice.
Yes, I believe we've got a sneak peek of that change. The bottle will now read, "Take 2 tablets if you're a pregnant woman who hates her baby." But for the second time this week, Donald Trump is telling pregnant women to avoid taking Tylenol and just tough it out, which is pretty ironic coming from a guy who can't handle the pain of living another day without a King Midas-esque ballroom. Look, posting things like this on social media is an incredibly irresponsible thing to do when you are not the president. And when you are, it is practically criminal. And some Republicans feel this way too. Kind of.
But should he be using his platform to tens of millions of people to say these kind of things?
Look, the bottom line is he's the elected president of the United States. He's doing what he thinks is right for the country. I respect him for that. I happen to have a differing point of view when it comes to vaccines in many cases, and I have a differing point of view when it comes to the use of Tylenol.
For Republicans, Donald Trump has essentially become everybody's old racist grandpa at Thanksgiving. Just ignore him. It's easier that way. I have a different point of view, but he grew up in a different time, back when you could say crazy stuff and guys weren't so disparaged for having an incredibly small penis. It's a pretty troubling scenario when politicians have to dance around the conspiratorial ramblings from the leader of their own party, especially if they happen to be next in line.
My guidance to pregnant women would be very simple, which is follow your doctor, right? Talk to your doctor about these things.
On the subject of doctors,
Sure.
Senator Bill Cassidy, doctor, Republican senator from Louisiana, he disagrees with you on this, and he says that there needs to be more evidence when it comes to the president's argument.
Well, I think that Bill Cassidy, if the argument is let's come up with more evidence and let's do more science, then I'm absolutely on board with that, because I think that, this is how science actually works, is you engage in studies and you refine and you have a hypothesis, and slowly over time you learn more and more.
Yes, that is how science works. The problem is Your boss then takes all those studies and evidence and all of that more and more we've learned and throws it in the dumpster out back. And one hypothesis for this ditching of scientific evidence is the influence of RFK Jr. According to the Wall Street Journal, RFK is carrying water for his lawyer friends who are pushing the Tylenol autism link in federal court. Their main lawsuit claim is that Tylenol's marketer, Kenvue Inc., failed to warn users about an autism acetaminophen link. But a judge overseeing the litigation rejected their claims 2 years ago and in damning fashion. So now, the lawyers are hoping that the government will breathe new life into them, conveniently timed for their appeal at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals this fall. Well, if garbled press conferences and hastily misspelled tweets aren't a breath of new life, I don't know what is. Look, I have to say that while I disagree with every single move Donald Trump makes, if you're a diehard Trump voter, I can sort of understand where you might be on board with some of the things that he does and says. But medical advice is not one of them. Taking medical advice from Donald Trump is like asking Pete Hegseth for advice on how to get sober. The sad truth is, Trump does not care about the overall health of American citizens, because if he did, he wouldn't have forced his party to pass a bill that shuts down rural hospitals, that deprives food assistance from 2.5 million people, and kicks 17 million Americans off of Medicaid, their last lifeline to healthcare. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I'm of the mind that depriving someone of access to food and healthcare can actually make them sicker. Donald Trump and RFK can't address the actual health of our nation because it's literally antithetical to the Republican platform, which is why, instead, they appeal to a small but vocal subset of Trump's base, aka the MAHA movement. See, when you've decided to throw out 99% of the recommendations from doctors and scientists, your options for making America healthy again are pretty slim, which is how we get things like this.
If you buy Fruit Loops today in Canada, it is made with vegetable dyes. If you buy it here in the United States, it's made with petroleum synthetics. We're going to accelerate the removal of red dye 3, so we're going to bring it down to under a year. And the other 6 dyes, within 18 months, we hope to get them out of all the food. And we're going to do science precisely on the issues that Americans care about, making sure their kids are getting food that isn't poison.
And we're doing it by addressing America's #1 killer, Fruit Loops. To quote Toucan Sam, follow your nose, it smells bullshit. The notion that taking artificial food dye out of a meal that is composed of puff circles of air and sugar is going to change the trajectory of health in our country is absurd. But these guys have to give something to their base to keep them satiated. It is an illusion of productivity, because to make big sweeping changes to the health of our nation, one would need professionals with medical experience to sign off on their actions. But since they're not getting that, they're left with a war on Tylenol, Fruit Loops, and the third biggest menace plaguing our nation, French fries.
Steak and Shake says all locations will be, quote, RFK'd as they swap vegetable oil for a healthier beef tallow to cook their iconic shoestring fries.
Hey man, if you're gonna RFK your whole establishment, why not just go all the way and offer up a free brain-eating parasitic tapeworm with each combo meal? For Donald Trump, this isn't about results, it is about optics. And optics have been Trump's entire focus since he rode down that other escalator that actually worked 10 years ago. He is not interested in solving problems, but rather throwing scraps to his base to show that he's fighting for them, even if his fight completely lacks any substance. It's why Donald Trump's war on Tylenol is the same as his recent war on New York Attorney General Letitia James. There's no evidence to support his actions. Professionals who Trump hired have told him that, but he's pressing on anyway so he can win the news cycle, throw himself a parade, and declare victory. Donald Trump's unfounded, reckless claims about medicine and science are going to have frightening real-world consequences for our most vulnerable citizens for years to come, and there's no telling what level of pain and suffering they may endure. I just hope it's nothing nearly as grave as hepatitis. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, Signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.